I'm Kevin Hadduck, a poet living here in Helena, Montana, and I'm happy to read some of my poetry today. I'm going to read first from a volume called A Farewell to Lent. This is a collection of mostly religious theological poems, and the poems I'm going to read today are a celebration of grace, but also an acknowledgement that grace can be very disruptive. I want to start with a very short poem, very, very short. The imagery comes from my love for storms in Kansas, where I used to live. A farewell to Lent. This thirsty April, I am watching ranks of cumulonimbi hurl their furious mercy against the winter's bones. This next little poem, you might say, is a tribute to grace and alcohol. It's called Stir. Descend and drown us, vital spirit. Pour white lightning lore on our dim wit. Crack our plastered brains with proof. Ferment our liquored veins until our blood runs ever clear. Ignite our wooden hearts, and in thy tender mercy, crash our party. I assume that you are familiar with tumblers, those little gizmos that polish rocks. You put rough rocks in, a mixture of sand and water, and they tumble, and out come beautiful, smooth stones. I use that as a metaphor through this poem. Tumbler. Simple mind I must have had. No sweet-smelling, soap-scoured Sunday school lesson let me know. I swear the process had begun before, or, by God, I'd not have asked. I did not nurture all those years, this proud high point, this cutting ridge, to have it knocked to hell against the tine of another fool's rock heart. How in the churn of sand and water will I hope to endure, my God, this juggernaut, this bash and crack, this relentless grind of grace? The imagery for this next poem comes from McDonald Pass, just a little ways west of here. And this is a celebration of grace as beauty and life. On McDonald Pass, I rode up through nightfall and stood atop the twilight pass as evening fled westward along hill crests and backlit ridges. Still, the tallest clouds gleam as daylight rolls up and away from an ocean of shadow teeming with night birds and night beasts. To the east, the fecund earth lies heavy in her darkness, breathing among spruce, pine, and fir, and pregnant by the morning sun. That new light will reach bright fingers through her canopy, spread itself among her curves, and touch a choir of pulsing, feathered throats. And finally, from this volume, A Farewell to Lent, I have a poem that celebrates grace. The poem is rooted in my personal background. As a child, I was not allowed to dance at all. Dancing was forbidden. And I think that crippled me in a way. So this poem is about dancing, celebrating grace in a whole-bodied manner. Our wild hallelujahs. I would have danced with you, but I could not. They never let me touch the polished floor, and so my feet grew slow, my cheeks grew hot. They never thought how when they closed the door, afraid I'd soil a woman's heart and bed, I'd never learn to sing, but in my head. I aim to dance my hallelujahs now. Just give my bones a chance, and they'll learn how. My body never learned to shape the praise that forms when bodies sway and arch while loving. My body never learned to sing the grace that only sings through ardent bodies moving. So who will help me now while I grow old? And who will warm my legs now that they're cold? I aim to dance my hallelujahs now. Come give my bones a chance. We'll both learn how. Come whirl to life with me. I might look strange, but what you see is broken body singing. and stretching muscle means extending range. And if we look a little drunk, we're only praying. We'll arch and spin and let our bodies shout until we fall and dance floor lights go out. We dance our wild hallelujahs now, and gracefully, while soul and bone know how. I have several poems here from another volume called Hymnody of the Blue Heron. In case you don't know, the word hymnody has a range of meanings. It can mean the writing of hymns, the singing of hymns, the study of hymns within a tradition, or a tradition of hymns. And these poems, despite the word hymn and hymnody, are not religious or theological. Instead, the poems I'll read from this collection have to do with loss and grief, friendship, and marriage. This first one is written for an old friend named Ruth. She died at 92 about 12 years ago. She was a dear, dear friend. I will look for you, although in a wheel rut where tires stir the melting snow, the form of a bird disappears. Flocks of blackbirds and starlings and sparrows do not pause at its grave. Feathers and bones lie askew, and rags of skin, food for the ravening spring. This bird will not rise like sprout from seed. The ants digest its memory. The buds do not remember the flowers, and I see nothing here in this mud, and nothing among the chill April branches to prove, my friend, that we will meet again. My wife Linda has worked for many years with elderly people and helped families, many families, through their end-of-life issues. And this poem and a few others are really a tribute to her compassion, her wisdom, and her experience with elderly. A note to his doctor. My friend, old and passing, said, "There is more to life than staying alive. Don't rescue me too much." On his farm, 12 miles out by rough gravel roads, he is done with plowing, spraying, harvesting. But he is not done watching the sun sink below the windbreak or listening to the nighthawks above his fields. Don't make him move to town. There is more to tragedy than dying. Love is a crazy old man. They found him in his underwear at the front door of the wrong house. The flashing blue and red of the cruiser startled an owl. The silent witness lifted into the dark and disappeared with not so much as a timid "who." The dog next door raised her head, let go a tentative bark, then stared quizzically at her master. She had seen him before in his white boxers, but even in her befuddled dog brain, she knew the door was wrong, and she wondered why. 2 lots down, across the street, a neighbor lightly sleeping awakened. He could see the old man from his window. There he was again, in his underwear, knocking and calling to her. It must have been that he rolled over, found only her pillow, and as he had done through the months since her passing, went looking for her. The neighbor thought, and then, before returning to his bed, surmised that the old man's life boiled down to a few indispensable cliches. He is not sure who he is without her. He is more faithful than a dog. He would go out hoping, even in his underwear, to find her again. We are going away. We are always going away, from beds with sterile sheets or from upholstered chairs. We speed suddenly through quiet noons, and the visiting hour finds us gone, and the noon meal cools forgotten. Or on mundane streets, we pass the last sign out of town, and days and years are highways, diminishing until the road's end, and we stand, not alone, but waving ourselves on. And we are going away still, always quickly, always soon. This, then, is my argument for love, that we compress the hoped-for years into the hour we have, and grasp the arm and press the lips and speak each other into words that will remain. One more poem from my friend Ruth. Fossil. Here is a riverbed, familiar, and dry now for years. The dryness, too, is familiar. It is marked off from the desert only by the rough banks where sleek fish no longer hide. I stand in it among stones and the stubble of willows, turning a fossil over in my hands. A breeze moans among rocks, or a deep-throated bird calls from the shade of a cactus. It is your voice, coming suddenly, without reason, cruelly, as friends' voices do when friends have gone. And I touch the impress, the intricate, detailed body of your absence. And I have two poems here I want to read, and these are for Linda. In a very real sense, they belong to Linda. In a small cafe. In a small cafe, sounds of a truck passing take us away from our stoneware cups. Against the clarity of window glass, I glimpse the fall and rise of your eyelashes. In a park, where light and shade spill from a tree, dappling us and our bench, you turn and look across your shoulder at the geese along the shore. Curves of your ear and brow gather sudden light. At the market, I come back to your aisle. I catch the profile of your lips and chin, your hand at some unruly hair hovering near your face. You are bending to inspect apples. You wait with me on a corner as the light changes. Then, in a medley of shoulders and purses and wind-tousled hair, I hurry to keep pace with you, your quick glance to the left exposing your cheek. Within the flourishes of our hands and dancings of our lips, there among the rumpled sheets, I find you. In the glow of our nightstand clock, I catch the silhouette of your face turning. Again, for my wife, Linda. Dancer. I have seen you dance too little, have seen the slow weight of my doubt, the slow rise of my fork at supper, and the slow turn of my head make you slow. Still, remembrance of your hair bobbing, sweeping shadows from your cheek, or touches of your shoes across the floor. How can I make these mean? Today, again, you at the window in shadow by the sink, the supper sun flings orange across the shagbark hickory, and cumulus clouds blossom orange. Somewhere between that unendurable billow flame of evening cloud and clatter of dish on pan, you stand, embodiment of fire, waiting. Something like this, a drawing down of heaven, heaven-flung fire, to fire again the ashen strands that cool the russet of our hair. Thank you.